Shalom, beloved family. It's your girl Sophia Spiritual Light, and we're here with another message. I thought I would be done with messages, but the messages keep coming. So, all praises to the Most High. Um, I wanted to do, I wouldn't say a clarification, but an addendum to my message yesterday about wondering what the feast days were for the mother. And I have a few clarifications that I hope will make things easier for people to understand. But the first thing is that, unlike me, I do not suggest anybody try to understand the Most High. The problem with me, to be honest, is that I want to understand the Most High. And I know that I have no physical capabilities of understanding. And so, despite my complete lack of physical capabilities for understanding the Most High, how He works, how He operates, His setup, His structure, any of that, I continue to seek. And therefore, what happens with people like me is that they never stop seeking. I will just keep asking the questions until I can make some sense out of it in my small mind, um, because I just have to, and every so, first and foremost, I don't suggest that you try to understand the Most High. Find something else that interests you and focus in on that. Do not engage in this, which I engage in, because you do spend so much of your time thinking about trying to ration. Because in my mind, it's as above, so below. So I've got to be able to connect how the Most High works with how something on this earth already works, because that's the rule, as above so below. That's like the you know on earth as it is in heaven. I mean, you can't tell me it's not on earth as it is in heaven. I mean, either it is or it isn't. And so, since we've been told over and over and over that it's on earth as it is in heaven, I'm looking for the on earth to match the as it is in heaven. And so, if you don't have to be concern yourself with this type of stuff, I just recommend that you don't, and your life will be a little bit easier to manage in mind. But however, since I'm the one who keeps asking the questions, I keep getting answers. And so the so my message yesterday, uh, I did not think it was inflammatory, but I was told it could be slightly inflammatory. So I did want to get a clarification from the mother on what was the real message I was trying to convey, so that I could provide this clarification for people who may or may not have understood where I was coming from. And I would also like to point out that 9 times out of 10, I'm asking questions. I don't have the answers. I don't want to know what the answers are. I have to go back and ask, especially for stuff that I don't quite understand. And I don't understand anything. And so, the fact that you're listening to a crazy person ramble on about stuff that she's getting from the angels is probably makes you crazy too. So none of this should be an issue. But I digress to the point. So, I want people to remember the Shema. Now, that's Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 9. And the very first sentence of Deuteronomy 6, 4 is, the Lord our God is one God. Now, this is this is this is where people don't understand. They don't apply the rule of as above, so below to themselves. Because, for example, you are one person. Your person has a name. If your name is Becky, that's your name as one person. If you take a cell out of you, that cell may have a title, meaning it might be a red blood cell, white blood cell, whatever the case may be, but it's still a part of you. It's not a part that's not of you, if you understand what I mean by that. And that's how God is. So when I refer to the Father separately from the Mother, I'm not referring to two different entities. I'm referring to one different entity with two sides. Well, technically three sides, but that's neither here. Well, technically four sides, but that's neither here nor there. But the point of the matter is, I'm not referring to separate entities. The Lord our God is one God. This is why I always say you get authorization from the Father, but the mother is the one who goes out and makes it happen. That's their relationship. And so, because we don't know what actual relationships look like, we don't have no templates, we don't have no nothing. We just see what people out here have been doing, and you already know they corrupted everything. So, we don't really know what a relationship is supposed to look like. And if you watch that video that I shared from Uncle Hank, and when he had all those women on there the other day, there was a lot of good things in that video about sort of understanding what I'm saying. But the point of the matter is, you know, the Lord our God is one God. We are one person. We're not separate persons. This is kind of like, I don't want to say I have a problem with, but I feel like it's, I don't even know how to say it, but when you're discussing your higher selves, and to talk about your higher self as if your higher self isn't right here with you is really confusing to me, because we are one person. We are made in the image of our Father, who is one person. So therefore we are one person with, we're one person with all of our past live incarnations. We're one person with all of our future life incarnations, and we're one person with all of our celestial reincarnations. And so, we just, in each different life cycle, we may take on a different title or a different cell within the greater body of the most high, essentially, because we are his children. And so we may come back again. This is how I describe the angels. It's like you have to, you I am the type of person that applies, tries to, when I say something, I try to be able to apply it across a multitude of examples, which is why I end up giving so many examples, because you have just like on a flower has a bunch of different parts. Some of the parts are bigger than other parts, but every part is important. You have the flower, you have the pollen, you have the little stamens, you got the stem, you got the leaves, you got all these, the chlorophyll, all the way down to the micro, all the way down to the macro. And so you have different parts within the body of a flower, and that's how we are. There's different parts within our bodies, but we're still one person. When somebody looks at us, we're still a child of the light, which is why people can look at us and see that we are different. It's because even if we are in a different phase in this life cycle, we're still a child of light no matter what. And when you look at us, we look like children of light. And that's how it is with the mother and the father. So this was my question. If we know a lot of the feast days for the father as what the Hebrews celebrate, then how are we worshiping the Father completely if we're not also looking at what the feast days are or the celebrations are for the mother? How is that possible? Because the Lord we serve is one God. And so if we are very carefully following the Father's celebration days, and we're not very carefully following the Mother's celebration days because they're one God, we're really not serving one God. We're really serving two gods. And you can't serve two gods. That's what the Bible says. You cannot have two masters. I don't have two masters. I have one master with two expressions or three or four, whatever. This gets into a whole nother set of things, which that's not the point I'm trying to make. I serve one God. The God I serve is one God. And so I'm getting an understanding on the Father's expressions, the celebrations that he wants to have with us as the Father, part of our one God. And I'm just simply asking the questions, well, how do we get a handle on the celebrations that our mother wants us to celebrate as part of our one God? And so that was really the question that I was asking. And I'm still asking the same question the same way. I'm just giving you some clarification because, again, I understand where the concept of the Father's days come from. And I want to understand the concept of where the Mother's days comes from, including Mother's Day, like including Father's Day. You know what I mean? Like all of these days, again, It is my belief that our kingdom is here on this earth. It's already built for us, and all we have to do is walk into it. That's my belief. Just like the children were circling around in the desert for 40 years, really they didn't have to do that, but they were so wicked that they wouldn't just stop and say, "Father, mother, please just let us stop wandering in the desert." They were proud and they said, "No, we'll wander until we get to where we're going." Well, I'm not I'm not approaching it like that. If y'all want to wander in the desert for 40 years because you won't just stop and say, "Hey, how do we worship the mother the same way that we worship the father?" So we worship the spirit of the Holy Spirit and the truth of the Father. How can we do both? So if I'm not willing to wander in the desert for 40 years because y'all don't ask the question. Let me just say that I'm asking the question, and then as I get certain answers, I'm presenting them to the people who also don't want to wander in the desert, but maybe you don't know the questions to ask, or maybe it never occurred to you to ask the question, or maybe as you've been thinking about other things, you didn't really think about this part. That's the reason why I'm delivering the message, not for the people who insist that they have it right, they know what they're doing, they interpret the Bible perfectly, and everything that they say and do is perfect. I'm not doing this for those people. For those people, more power to you. You're more than welcome to listen to my channel, like and subscribe and share whatever you find to be relevant. But what I'm presenting is for the people who do not want to have to continue to wander around in circles in the desert for lack of asking questions. Like, how do we get out of this situation, which is what I've been asking. Not just, oh, we want to take back the kingdom, but how do we take it back? How do we this? How do we that? And again, as I also always say, if the Holy Spirit is ripped from me, you will not hear me making no videos. I will not speak publicly in this capacity at all if I speak publicly at all. If what I'm doing is off and I'm going in the wrong direction and I don't have a pure heart and all of this stuff and I'm just coming out here pulling stuff out of my butt telling it to y'all so that y'all can get yourselves in trouble or whatever the case may be, you won't hear me on this channel no more. Unlike some people who have had the Holy Spirit ripped from them and they can still continue to speak, I will not do that. I won't do it. I don't care how many people I have on my channel. If I mess up like Solomon did and sacrifice to another god, then I get what I get. I'm not going to continue to act like I'm a moral authority. Not that I'm a moral authority now, but I'm not going to continue to act like I'm a moral authority when I don't have the moral. Even if I have the authority of the father, I don't have the moral. If you don't have the mother, you don't have the moral. And so I'm not going to be like that. I don't, just to put that out there. And whenever I need to say it, I'll say it again. But that's not me. So what I'm doing is pure. What I'm doing is trying to get to the answer, the heart of a situation, so that we cannot have to wander in the desert for 40 more years. Who wants to keep doing this? This is why we ended up with 400 years in the first place, or 4,000 years, based on the Hammurabi Code. This is why we ended up with this, because there wasn't enough people who were willing to stand up and say, well, what is it? Like, how can we fix it? And then when we're given a solution, you know, people just automatically poo poo it. So, this leads me to the second part of my message. So, again, I asked the question, you know, after I said yesterday, look, I think there's something there for us with the Orthodox Church because of this and that and this and that. And I got online because I'm in a bunch of Orthodox group on Gab, and they're having a fast today. I'm like, well, wait a second. We're having a fast today too. So what is it with fasting on this day? Well, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. You have to be willing to look at. No, you don't have to be willing. I'm willing to look at what other people are doing. When certain things keep lining up, I have to ask the question of, okay, well, how did they get this information? So this is, from what I understand, from what I could hear, much of what they do in the Orthodox Church is that worship of the mother, that the questions I was answering, I was looking for the questions I was asking. Much of the questions I was asking is answered by looking at the Orthodox. And of course, like I said, they have some hijacks in there, but there's a lot to be gained in looking at how they worship, especially how they do their feast days and what feast days they celebrate and how they celebrate them. And so, even though, like I said, I would not join no Orthodox church, I'm not saying that at all. I'm willing to look at how they do things for an understanding of how things would need to be done. And the reason for that is, like I said, the Orthodox church is what Yahweh left behind. This is what Peter and Paul and all of them set up right after Yahweh died. That is literally the church that they set up, the way that they do the church, every bit of it, because they are very much into this tradition thing. Every bit of it is how Yahweh Shai set up the church, or rather Mary Magdalene set up the church. For all we know how it really worked, we don't know. They say it's Peter and Paul, but we already, I mean, not to, not to get into this too deep, but we already know who had to been really running the show. It had to been Mary. She was as high of an initiate as Yahweh was, and she was just in that heavy Noga energy because she and Solomon. King Solomon had the same, either bloodline or incarnation or whatever it is. She had a lot of wisdom within her, and so she was doing things the way she was doing it based on what had happened to her, but at the same time she already had it in her bloodline certain things, or in her incarnation line certain things. I'm not sure. I am not technically going to get into all of those details because I don't think they matter. So, not right now, as we're just trying to figure things out now. Once I feel like I'm looking for more specific questions, then I'll get it back into that. But right now I'm just trying to get a general understanding of what's going on here. So the point is that I was making is that is a church that Yahushua or Mary Magdalene, Peter, Paul, and all the disciples, that's the church that they left behind. And so you can't discount that as being some sort of church of high, initiating people into these particular high standards based on what they would have deemed to be important. And so that is something that I had been thinking about ever, all the way back when. And then since I, I, s- again, like I said, I stopped going, and then I started, following Levi more closely. And then I started on this part of the walk. And now I'm circling back to it because I'm finding that every time I'm looking for some information about the mother, it goes somehow it ties back into the Orthodox Church. Every feast day I'm looking at, every holiday I'm looking at, every saint I'm looking at is is well documented, well venerated, well celebrated within the Orthodox Church. And I mean, they have like stuff that they celebrate almost every single day. I mean, if you're looking for a saint to celebrate, literally they have one every single day, and all the saints are, anyway, the point of the matter is I'm trying to make is that I'm seeking the father and the mother in spirit and in truth. I want to know the truth of the matter, and I don't want to leave the spirit out of it. So it's one thing to know the truth that, oh, we're descendants of the Most High, we're this, we're that. That's one part of it. But for me, it's not good enough to leave out the spirit, which is how I ended up here on this side anyway. As I mentioned, I was studying anthroposophy, but I felt like it was so heavy on the side of the mother that it didn't include enough for me about the father and the understanding of the father and how they work together. That was my beef with anthroposophy as I was studying it, which wasn't really too deep. I was just following some people. I haven't read no Steiner. I already told you what I think about him, but and what I think he was doing. So I never read no Steiner. I just let people interpret for me and give me their interpretations of the things that he said that are important, because I'm not really at that level where I can take in stuff that is where I can consciously take in stuff that was taken from ear hustling in the firmament. I'm not really ready for that. So but I can take a moral person explaining it to me in a way that I can understand so that I can internalize it. So that's my thing with anthroposophy. So, but like I said, I felt like it was too heavy on one side. It's just like the church was too heavy on Yahweh Shai, no focusing on God, no separation from God. Then you get to anthroposophy, it's too heavy on Yahweh. I mean, too heavy on the mother, not really talking about the father or really Jesus per se, because it was more so on the feminine. Then I get on this side and I feel like there's a balance here. And for me, because I do have heavy yin energy and yang energy, I'm like equal. And my chart is really heavy on both sides. I have that heavy masculine energy from the Scorpio, and then I have equal amount of feminine energy from the Virgo. So I'm literally like a middle path person, And so as a result, I'm just looking to seek to balance out. And so for the last what, since May, so 6, 7 months, I've been really getting in and understanding, like relearning the stuff about the father, learning how to reframe ideas that I had about the father into the proper mindset. So I feel like I at least need to spend 6 months relearning the mother. I mean, and because I have that experience of going to the Orthodox Church and seeing what that's really like, I have that as a frame of mind. So again, we're back to one of these situations where it kind of had to be me to present this message, because I'm one of the only people I know that has been willing to go into every place where they say you shouldn't go and just see what's going on, man. What's going on in here? Let me see what's happening. Like, what is my own personal experience? I don't take stuff what people said for the from their own experience. Like, for example, I've been into a Lutheran church, I've been into a Catholic church, I've been into Jehovah's Witness church, I've been into uh I haven't been into a mosque, because those that's kind of like a different thing in back home. There were mosques, but I've never been into a mosque. Because I was like, I'm not wrapping my head, this is anyway. Um But as far as on the Christian side, I've been, and because of when I was in school, our choir sang at a lot of, I've been in the mega churches, I've been into cult churches, I've been into all kinds of different churches with all kinds of different things that they were teaching their people and so on and so forth. And so the point of the matter is, I have a lot of different religious experience, not just a lot of different other kinds of experience too. And so it literally had to be someone who was willing, who is not just was, is willing to go into the den of vipers and do like Yahweh, turn the money tables over. Because one thing I know is that when I go in somewhere, if it's not right, hey, I'm going to start asking questions and I'm going to start bringing up contention. I don't have any control over that. That's just what I do, because I can't help myself. I can't help myself just by me going into a place, especially where there's almost no black people. That's automatically like going to bring up a point of contention. And then when I start asking questions that nobody can answer and I start having problems, I'm exposing, issues, and I'm exposing different things. So like, back to the Orthodox Church. So one of the things that I think that they get wrong is their interpretation of every single prophecy. Their interpretation of prophecy is entirely wrong. Entirely wrong. And I don't know whether that's on purpose or by accident or whatever, but when you talk to Orthodox about prophecy, the resurrection, all that stuff, their understanding of that is totally wrong. They do not get that at all. They are completely wrong. They and I think it's probably on purpose, because they would have been some of the ones, like in Russia they have orthodoxy. So they would have been the ones who had Russian icons that look like us. You know what I mean? And so really I feel like that's our church. That's the church that Yahweh Shai left for us. And then it just got overtaken and it got corrupted. But really, I just have a very, and I have, you could ask Miss Colette, man. When I first went to the Orthodox Church, I was like, man, this is the church that Yahweh Shai left for us. Like I said, they do have stuff that they get wrong, starting with their interpretation of prophecies. Entirely wrong, entirely wrong, entirely wrong. And just their understanding of the actual Bible is extremely limited. The average Orthodox person, they read a lot. Now they know what the saints said, they know what they did, they know all of they got a lot of stuff on that. But as far as interpreting the actual book, putting it into place today, explaining it how it relates to people today, like I said, the church that I went to, I asked the priest, like, well, why do they use the Holy Ghost somewhere and then they use the Holy Spirit in other places? And he told me, well, they're interchangeable. And I was like, nowhere in the Bible does that even make sense. They're not interchangeable. And so I understood who I was dealing with, you know what I mean? And so I wouldn't take their teachings on that as a way of dealing with certain things. But there was this is kind of all over the place, but I hope that I'm making the point. Like I mentioned, or let me tie this to something else. In in the meeting, or the video with Uncle Hank and those beautiful women, the women were discussing how the one lady was discussing how she uses sound and vibration to recalibrate certain things in her body, this and that, right? And so what that made me think of was how when you go into the Orthodox Church, as I mentioned, they don't their entire most of their service is singing. They don't actually have a piano. Everything is all voices. And the way that the acoustics are set up in the church, it resonates in such a way that you can literally feel that down into your spirit. Like, you can feel it down into your spirit, and then if you know what is being said, you can follow along with the actual words. Then you can really start to have that resonate through your body. And so when she described that, the lady in the video, I immediately thought of, wait, that sounds exactly like what happens when you go to an Orthodox service, because you get that sort of feeling down into your bones. And what is being said is kind of like, again, this is, they even have it in Greek, the original Greek that, Peter, whoever would have wrote it in. So, this is not like something that I'm just like trying to tell y'all this is what you should do. I'm literally giving my experience. This is what I experienced when I went there. It was like amazing, because I could feel like a lot of what I'm calling blood guiltiness. I could feel a lot of that being removed with every service that I went to. I was like, wow, this is great. This is amazing. Like, all of that stuff is coming off. And then when I got on this side, and I was like, I needed time to step back and relearn a lot of different things on the side of the father, so that I understood what was going on. And now that I'm relearning the stuff on the side of the mother, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm ready to go back, because I feel like there was a lot there that I don't want to say I missed. I'm going to say that there was a lot there that I could take advantage of, as far as understanding more about the mother and completing this circle of, you know, while they have the yin and yang too in this. This is amazing, man. Oh goodness, this shim that Elder Almond, I just, every time I look at it, especially while I'm doing these things, I see exactly what I'm talking about in it. It's like, if you look at the yin and the yang, and this is why I said it may before, and Sister Myra Moss, she also says that it's four now. It's the mother and the father. And if you look in the yin and the yang, inside of the yang is a little drop of the mother, and inside of the yang is a little drop of uh inside of the yin is a little drop of the father, and inside of the yang is a little drop of the mother. And so you literally have this one thing called the yin and the yang symbol, but it has the mother and the father and the son and the daughter all in that one symbol. And that's what Sister Myra had been talking about with all of this stuff, and how we are to, look at ourselves in relation to this whole thing. And so I say all of that to say this, or back to my original point, which is, if you're trying to worship the Father in spirit and in truth, and you are hyper focused on the truth, that you never get to the spirit, or you're hyper focused on the spirit that you never get to the truth, how can you walk the middle path? And that's the reason why the Israelites had to circle around the desert for 40 years, because they were hyper focused on one, then they were hyper focused on the other, and they wouldn't worship the Most High in spirit and in truth, meaning you follow the directives of the Most High, but you also follow directives of the Mother, and you also incorporate in there some of the Son, you incorporate in there some of the daughter. You worship the God you worship is, or the Lord, the God I worship is one God, one God. And if I'm not worshiping all the parts of that one God, then what am I doing here? What am I doing here? And so you can look at it back to the yin and the yang symbol. You can look at it like this. Again, all those names of the angels, the names that are in caps and all of that, those are all dots within the black of they're dots within the black of the yin, and the numbers that we don't even have all the numbers for are all white dots within the section of the yang, or the yin. And so the numbers are more so the reflection of the mother's angels, and the actual names are the words are the reflection of the father's angels. And so you have this situation where, for example, the air kadeshi, those are the earthly mother angels, but they're probably within that realm of the dot that's on the yang side, because they coalesce around the father. And then you have certain angels that are within the realm of the mother, that are in that black dot, that the mother has encompassed. Like, now I'm going to get to another thing that's probably going to be controversial, but I'm just going to throw it in here anyway. It seems to me that the feminine reflection of Raphael, which we also know as Enoch, Thoth, Tahuti, all of these, every name that Enoch has, it seems like the feminine reflection of that name is Mother Mary. And I say that because of this. If you know anyone who's pregnant, they can use the name of Raphael or the numbers 640 to protect them during their pregnancy. And you write those numbers on different places, and just like I talked about with the 644. So the 640 represents Raphael. And so I asked, Raphael, that's kind of like Enoch, and again, I'm a Cocovite, so that's a person that rules me, and or heavily influences me. And I said, well, what's the feminine aspect of a Enoch? What's the divine feminine on that side? And so what came to me was Mother Mary, which would have made sense, or which makes sense, because she was taught directly by Eve or Gabriel how to do the Immaculate Conception. And so at the time of Yahushua, much like the time we have now, everybody is here. You know, all the angels that are in heaven are here. They're here right now to make sure that we get through this part. And so am I saying that I'm this person or that person? No, but I definitely can identify with that explanation, because me, I've always been a protector of children. Even when I was a child, I was protector of children. Like, I could go on and on and on and on about that. But I won't. But just know I've always been a protector of children, and a lot of what I do has been in the protection of children. And when I had my own children, I have worked fiercely to protect my own children, and not in the way that other people protect their children, but in different ways. Just stuff that I do is a little bit different, not just to protect them, but to maintain their innocence. Not just to maintain their innocence, but to put them in situations where they can thrive, and this and that. And so I'm just saying, like, so anyway, the point of the matter is, when you, again, as you start to be able to tie these, you know, these angels to actual people, then you start to understand, okay, this is what's going on. So it seems like the earthly mother angels are that little dot of white inside of the yang, but the archangels are the little dot of black that's inside the white, because it seems to me like a lot of the archangels were actually at some point human. They all have human characteristics, and they have masculine and feminine human characteristics. So when you have people who have masculine and feminine human characteristics, that means they had to have incarnated as a human at some time, and that person ascended up into that level. And so if you look at that again, that yin and that yang symbol, then you can understand a little bit more about what's going on. So there's all kinds of symbols like where stuff is hidden, but if you're not trying to understand what they mean, and really trying to implement them into your life, and not the way the Gentiles do, but by asking the Spirit, the truth or the Spirit, to come and give it to you. This is why, again, I hate to go into this, but this is why I like my name is Spiritual Light, because I'm the child of the Spirit and the light. I'm not one or the other. I take the middle path, even though I'm on the female side this time, which is why Sophia, I'm on the side of the mother this time. I came into this incarnation cycle as a female, so obviously I'm of the Sophias. So, but that doesn't negate my understanding, or my the part of me that doesn't negate the part of me that's of the Father. It's just that on this, because one thing Elder Almond said, which really ties us all together, and if you haven't seen that video, man, it every time I think about it, it's more stuff I hear, or I remember him saying, that was just kind of like thrown out there, but it's like, wow, this is amazing. When in the astral realm, you may be androgynous, male and female, or neither. You know what I mean? That's how it is in the spiritual realm. But when you come into the physical realm, you got to pick a side. You don't get to come into the physical realm and not pick a side. You just have to pick a side. That's the way that's the rule for this realm, is you don't come into this realm being neither or both or whatever. You pick a side. And so I'm starting to understand a little bit more about what that means, because as we incarnate into each different life cycle, we do pick a side. We pick a male or female side, and 9 times out of 10, a female is going to continue to incarnate as a female, unless she got too much into her masculine side in the last life cycle. And that may be what they're trying to do by getting all of our women into this heavy male energy, so that when we reincarnate into the next life cycle, we'll reincarnate as men, and then we'll be bred out in that way. But what they don't understand is that the women who are left in this life cycle are really, taking a stand to get in touch with our femininity, so that we are able to continue to reincarnate in a feminine body, as opposed to reincarnating in a masculine body. And the men, they're messing them up by getting them to reincarnate from male to female, to male to female, and messing their brains up. But what they don't know is that a lot of our men are becoming more comfortable with their masculinity, and they are able to reincarnate again for as men over and over. So that's another part of that wandering through the desert. Like, we will continue to wander through the desert if you have to, every time you die you come back as a different thing, because you didn't resolve the issues from your last life cycle with the male side. So now you got to come back as a male, and then you didn't reincarnate, you got to reincarnate again as a female in the next life cycle, because you didn't r- satisfy those issues. So that's another example of wandering through the desert, is that you just keep wandering from incarnation cycle to incarnation cycle in multiple, you know different things, because you can't just deal with what you have in front of you. You're just always looking for something else. And I mean, that probably doesn't apply to anybody who's watching this, me, but I'm just saying that's what it seems like to me. That's the feeling that I'm getting. And so I'm just like, letting, like I said, all I'm trying to do is get to the truth of the matter, so that I can get to the spirit of the matter. If I can't get to the spirit of the matter, then I'm going to get to the truth of the matter. If I get to the truth of the matter, then I'm going to have to get to the spirit of the matter. I have to do both. That's just me. And so that's where I'm coming from on all of this. I just want to get to both parts. I want to combine both parts, because I feel like without, that's the knowledge again. there's lots of knowledge that our people perish from, but that's the knowledge that we're perishing from right now is how to incorporate both sides, how to just not get so caught up on the male side that we forget the female side, and how not to get caught up on the female side that we forget about the male side. What I will say about that interview that Uncle Hank did, a lot of the things that women said is things that the angels have been teaching me. I mean, a great deal of what she said is what the angels have actually been teaching me. And I didn't know that's what I was learning until I heard her describe this process. And I was like, oh, the angels been teaching me that. I didn't know that was like a thing. I mean, I'm very innocent. So stuff I don't know is a thing. I'm like, oh, that's a thing. I didn't even know that was a thing. Okay, that's cool. And I just it's so hard to have these type of discussions because I just know that people are going to close their ears and they're going to close their hearts and they're going to just totally miss the point that's being made because it's so different. But I'm imploring people to just think about what you do. Think about these things in more detail than just like the interpretation that someone gives you. And then of course, like I haven't said it, but I'll say it now. If you're trying to figure out if what I'm saying is accurate or inaccurate, this is when you pull out your pendulum or whatever divining technique you use, if it's cards, if it's this, if it's that. That some of that woman's description of how to use how cards and stuff are being used, I didn't quite agree with, because you do sometimes need a physical. It depends on what your sign is. So again, to put every I always have problems when people put everybody into one category, like all women are supposed to be just like this. Well, maybe sometimes, but sometimes you may need to be able to pull into that yang energy, because if you it's how they always said about us. If you're all love and no war, or well, all love and no light. Light is like very aggressive. So if you're all love, you're all spirit, and you're no truth, then you have a problem here. You don't have any balance. So I do think our women need to balance out our truth with some spirit, but at the same time, I wouldn't be willing to give up my spirit just so that I can have the truth either. I feel like we should be walking the middle path. That's what every scripture, every time Yahweh Shai, everybody says to walk the middle path. So why I would give up the middle path to only walk in one side or the other is beyond my understanding, and I wouldn't do it personally. So, that's when I start to have when people say same thing with the meat. Everybody shouldn't eat meat. No, well, it depends on who you are. Like me, like I said in the other video, I've already been fasting basically my whole life and I didn't know it. So, it wasn't an unintentional fast. It was just, hey, this is what we do in our family. This is when we eat meat. It's very intentional. So it wasn't that I was intentional about when I ate meat. I wasn't intentional about when I didn't eat meat, which is a little bit of a different set of things. So, and I know everybody haven't been through that. A lot of people have blood, like I'm calling it now, blood guiltiness they have to deal with, and I totally understand that. And so none of my messages are intended to people to just take what I say at carte blanche and just be like, okay, well, Sophia says this, so I'm going to do this. I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, think about it. Come to your own conclusion. Do what makes sense for you. Ask the mother your own questions based on the questions that I'm asking. Because, like I said before, a lot of times people don't know what questions to ask. They don't know how to ask the question. They don't have the framework. And when they're asking a question, so when you get ready to ask a question, you don't even know what frame to ask it in, because you don't have the requisite information or the requisite knowledge to ask the question in the right way. And so all I'm trying to do is bring some requisite knowledge so that when you ask your questions, they can be effective. Because if you don't have the requisite knowledge, it's very difficult to ask the questions. That's all I'm trying to do is bring some requisite knowledge, bring some alternate ideas, some alternate theories. So when you get ready to ask your questions, you know what questions to ask. That's it. Everything else, people can say whatever they're going to say. I'm not really involved in all of that. I just want for people to get what I'm saying and to not judge what I'm saying without having at least thought about it. and giving it some thought, um in general. Like, this is I don't want to go on too long about this, but this is how because I just kept asking the questions about, well, who are these archangels? Like, if we're evolving into that realm, who were they when they were human? Now, who were they? I'm just trying to get an understanding of a personality profile so that I can put one and one and make two. This is just how I am. Or like even recently with my, stuff with the tarot, like I just kept saying there's something wrong with this tarot in my mind. I had always thought it, but the more I use it, the more I realized that I had a problem and I wasn't really sure how to resolve it. And then all of a sudden we get these videos on putting the cards in the proper order, and now I understand what my problem was. Because again, you went from 0 to 1 being the magician when 1 is supposed to be the high priestess. Well, if you put the high priestess at 1, then it makes sense because you have 0, which is well, it's kind of feminine but it's kind of masculine. But I would say the even numbers are, you go from 0, which is a masculine number, to 1, which is a feminine number, then 2, masculine, and then all of these things make sense. And then you have a system that aligns with the astrology and that aligns with the stars in a way that makes sense. Whereas before, when you try to understand the system of tarot, you couldn't make no sense of it because they had put so many things out of order that they didn't make sense. And so what I wanted was something that made sense that I could explain to someone else if I had to. And now I have something that does make sense that I can explain to somebody else, thanks to Lord Asaran, who just started making videos, which are super based, by the way. Anyway, that's neither here nor there because he says something that's entirely accurate about women and younger women being with older men and older men being with younger women, and it completely makes sense. And you don't anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's completely off topic. I'm just saying that resolved a problem that I had because I was using the cards like oracle cards, which is fine. That's fine. But I knew, because I was doing astrology and tarot together, I knew that there had to be an actual connection. And without having that understanding of the actual connection, I never would have come up with a lot of this stuff, just the Mary Magdalene and the Mother Mary, and trying to figure out, what these different angels are, and how these things operate and how we can use them the proper way. Because again, part of the problem is because we're only willing to seek the spirit or the truth. When you try to speak the spirit and the truth, which it says to seek God in spirit and in truth. It says spirit and truth. It doesn't say spirit or truth. It says spirit and truth, which means you have to seek the spirit side and you have to speak the truth side. And so a lot of people are comfortable with seeking the spirit only or speaking the truth only. And when they forget the Shema, you have to remember the Shema. The Lord our God is one God. You have to seek with spirit and truth. You can't do either or. You got to do it together. You can't be purged with hyssop and made clean and not be washed and made whiter than snow. You need both. How can you ask to be purged with hyssop to be made clean and not be asked to wash and be made white as snow? That doesn't even make sense. Because if you're made clean but you're not white as snow, then you're not clean. You're really just like hyssop dirty, with still not being washed white as snow. So, and opposite, how are you going to be washed white as snow without being purged with hyssop? No, you have to do both. You have to be purged with hyssop and washed white as snow. You need the mother's part and the father's part. When even in so-called immaculate conception, there's a feminine part and a masculine part. It's just that women could control the masculine part and the feminine part. This is how you know that anybody who is saying one or the other is missing the drop on how this is supposed to work. Like, I know that I know what it physically takes to have a child is or to create a birth is you have to impregnate the egg with something. You're not just going to have an egg fall and nothing. You're not impregnating with something. It's just that we don't know what Eve and the rest of them used or what Mary used to impregnate herself, except for something from the angelic realm. And so until we have an understanding, and I actually have a theory on that, but I'm not at all ready to get into that at all because I think it's going to be another huge problem. So I'm not ready for that. But the point of the matter is, we don't know what was used as the sperm in that experience, but we know from human anatomy there has to be a sperm that does not have the mitochondria tail that comes in and impregnates that egg. And so we know that that's what happens. So since we know that that's what happens, we are we are behooved to say that, or it would be foolish to say that there was no yang energy in that immaculate conception. There was yang energy. We just don't know what the yang energy is. That's because we don't understand energy or yang energy. We don't understand any of it. We're very, very infantile in our understanding of even how this place works. And so all I'm trying to do is ask the questions so that I can find out. And then as I find out, like I said, I will share it with you all. And these are going to be far more uncomfortable conversations like this, but I feel like nobody else is going to be willing to really speak the truth of the mother from the way that I'm presenting it. And there's very few people who have gone into all the different realms that I've gone into as far as spirituality is concerned. And therefore, the only um the only thing that I can do is share my experiences and my observations, and hopefully, the people who this message is for, even if it's 84 years into the future, just like this Shem came down with Elder Almond, even if it's 84 years into the future and people start to listen to my stuff and it makes sense, that's fine. I don't need my compensation now. I build up my treasures in heaven, and the Father and the Mother, as one God, are willing to you know, shepherd me into wherever it is I have to go, every dark corner, every lion's den, every pit of vipers, whatever it is they have me to do, I'm willing to do it, and I'll continue to put it here on my channel. So, to the spirits who are here with us, you're invited to go in peace. To my beloved viewers, you're invited to be at peace, and always remember, the Most High is your peace. Shalom.